And so we are proud and thrilled to have with us today Carrie Tavella. Come on up and join us, Carrie.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's so wild being here. So many Ohioans. Columbus, Ohio. I'm actually from Ohio. I'm from Salina, and this was the first time I could say where I was from and somebody knew what I was talking about. That's never happened. It was weird coming back to Louisville. God's been just bringing my life full circle in so many areas, and Louisville was not a good time for me in college. I had a really toxic relationship. Even I was toxic too, we both were, but that was like my last memory was being here in 2005, so it's crazy being in this area again. God's just such a redeemer and has restored so much for me. But I just want to share a little bit of our story. Did anyone watch AGT, America's Got Talent? Anyone? No? I didn't. We never actually saw an episode before he won, so that was crazy. So it's been quite an adventure. So I grew up in a small town in Ohio, Salina, and anyone have any praying moms or grandmas in the house? Anyone? Thank you. I made all the wrong choices in high school. Man, my grandma knew I was going down a pretty bad path, and I just had all the wrong friends. I'm really passionate about choosing your friends wisely, and so I was just making a lot of bad choices. Thankfully, my grandma was praying, and I loved what you said about, only God could do that. There's just no plan, just God, and I'm super passionate about prayer, and I know you all are too in here. That's why we've seen so much breakthrough from the power of prayer. I had my grandma praying for me. I had a lot of scholarships to play volleyball in college, and I just had my heart set on going to a big D1 school. I just wanted to go to a big school where no one knew me and I could just run away from my past because I was a runner. And this one little school in Tennessee asked me to come for a visit, and I went out there and had no desire to go to the school. And I went to a party with the volleyball team. I got drunk. They took me to a baseball party. I saw a bunch of cute boys, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where I want to go to school. I didn't know anything about the school, and I signed 4 years at this college in a dry county, and it was a Christian college. So, all my plans wrecked through prayer. But that was where the seeds were. God's funny. He has a sense of humor, for sure. I had a volleyball coach, though, who cared more about my character than my skill set, and I was so cocky. I just thought I could do whatever I wanted. I could just live however I wanted. There was no consequences, and so she was the first person that really seeded in my life and would always love on me and call me into her office, and she'd be like, you know what, God's put you on my heart again. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? And so she just really showed me the love of Jesus. She never made me feel judged, and I was a mess, and I was just still making horrible life choices at this point, and she knew it. But she just had such a mama heart and just really loved on me and could have easily dismissed me as oh, this girl's a lost cause. There's no hope for her. And she never did. She just really loved me, although I didn't understand her at the time. So after college, I was still in the same shenanigans. I moved out to Los Angeles. My very first friend in LA was a pastor of a church. So God was always chasing after me and constantly answering people's prayers for me that I didn't know at the time. And I got into the modeling industry. I just had so many exciting things happening. People from my hometown cheering me on, the small town I came from, just man, you're really doing big things. And I just had a picture featured in every major magazine, and I signed with a huge modeling agency just thinking, I was living the life and I could do whatever I wanted. There was no consequences until there was. Everything just started crashing down. I signed with a big modeling agency, and the next week I found myself in a clinic by myself in North Hollywood, and I had just tested positive for herpes. And so you can imagine where that took me. I was so depressed, so suicidal after that. I was like, oh my gosh, no one's ever gonna love me. I'm disgusting. I'm never getting married. I'll never have kids. And that just thrusted me into 7 years of drinking and just trying to numb myself. And in those 7 years, I also got in a relationship with someone who we ended up getting pregnant, and I had an abortion at 7 weeks. And so I knew it was wrong because the truth is written on our hearts. I didn't tell anyone in my family except my brother, and I just kind of buried all these things and just kept living my life until everything hit rock bottom. I met a guy in Las Vegas. He bought me a $50,000 engagement ring. We moved in together on the beach. He bought me everything I wanted. We traveled. I had everything that I was supposed to have to be happy and successful, and I was just a mess. He introduced me to harder drugs, and so that's how I was living, and how most of culture is living now. And I ended up hitting rock bottom with all of that. I was standing on the 10th floor of our balcony just trying to jump one night, and the next morning, my brother, who claimed to be an atheist our whole life, invited me to church. And so he was like, you need to commit to 3 things. You need to stop drinking. You need to start volunteering because you're super selfish. And come to church with me. And so I went to church with him, and God completely wrecked me the very first time walking in. That void was like filled instantly. And I felt joy for the first time. And, that was just a process. And I got sober and all these things, right? And so I met actually I was still engaged at the time. The guy would sit in the back with me. He didn't want to be there. And I ended up getting out of that engagement and met who's my husband now. He was a worship leader at the church. And so God just took me on such an adventure. I met him. We started a homeless ministry together. He broke every stereotype I made about him, by the way. I had come out of this engagement man, I want to walk in purity. I want to do what God says. There was a couple mentoring me from our church. They were they really are the reason I got out of that engagement. They were like, if you want God's best for your life, if you want to be in the center of his will, and they weren't judgy at all. They made me feel so valued. They were like, if you want God's best, you probably shouldn't be living together and sleeping together before marriage. And I really believed them because it was the first time that I had witnessed Christ-centered love. The way they were interacting with each other was it was unbelievable. And I clearly heard God speak, I want that for you, and I have it for you, but it's not going to happen with homeboy because he doesn't love me. And I am love, so how could he ever love you? And so, I officially had gotten out of that relationship, and when I met my husband, I was like, I'm doing this different this time because the past didn't work. All the relationships that I was in, all of them starting off physical, I didn't even know the guy. And so this one was different. I was like, I'm going to do it God's way. And so we just hung out in groups, it took things super slow. And like I said, he broke every stereotype. He was a missionary for 7 years in Tyler, Texas. And I was like, what? Because he was also really handsome and a musician, so I assumed, first I thought he was gay. He always jokes. I'm like, okay, he was wearing man capris, so I was like, I don't know. I thought, and then I thought maybe he was a ladies' man because he also kind of swaggy sometimes. I'm like, I think he just doesn't know his style. Yeah, I don't know what. He always jokes. He's like, I went from being gay to the church hussy. So I don't know. But he broke all the stereotypes. He told me how he never drank or did any drugs, and he shared a bit of his parents' story with me, how his parents met on a drug run. And his dad was actually selling his mom cocaine. That's how they met. And when he was young, it was just full of affairs and fighting, and every Friday and Saturday night, the parties were at his parents' house. It was just all built off sex, drugs, rock and roll, and his parents would be fighting on the porch with a shotgun when he was little and arguing over who got to kill themselves and who had to stay and take care of the kids. So it was an absolute disaster. But this is why I love the power of one and discipleship. One couple came into his family's lives who were Christian and introduced them to Jesus. And mom ended up getting saved, and then dad got saved. And my husband watched his whole family get restored and put back together, and Jesus being the center. And so that's why he never drank or did any drugs. And so then he also told me he was waiting till marriage to have sex. So I'm like, stop. what? Like, that's literally, I just left this engagement because that's what I wanted. And God was just showing me, do you know the picture of, there's a picture, I should have brought it up here, but a picture of Jesus. He's holding like a huge bear behind him, and this girl is standing like, oh, I don't want to give it up. And he's like, trust me, give me what you think you want and you need, and I have so much more. It's exactly what God did for me. But yeah, so after we started the homeless ministry, we felt called to Texas. It didn't make any sense to our family. They're like, why are you, our rent was paid for in LA, and we like loved where we lived because my husband had a music manager who really believed in him. Our rent was paid for. We loved where we lived. It was across the street from Trader Joe's. Like, life was good. In the mountains. It was a really sweet mountain town. And my husband had done Youth with a Mission out in Texas when he was young, and he was 18. He didn't go to college. He just went straight there. And so I always wanted to do the schools that he had done. And it just so happened they asked him to come lead worship and speak at a youth conference. And so we went there. And I'll never forget, I was in the prayer chapel. God spoke to me, now's the time, like, go. And so we had to like go back and basically tell his manager, like, we're moving to Texas. We don't know where we're gonna live really yet, but we're doing this. And so we moved. That was like a hard yes, right? Like those acts of obedience it's difficult, and it's usually not what I want to do, but we really were following and seeking the Lord. And I did my school. I'm going through discipleship training school. It was amazing. I did a course called Lives at Risk. Can you just raise your hands? Because there's two ladies here. One that she was like my staff that I was under, and it's so crazy that she's here. But I did this school called Lives at Risk, and it was basically, I was learning all about abortion, the morning after pill, and the woman who had started Living Alternatives, she's very anointed in sharing this. So she was sharing, like, you know, what abortion really is. And I was on my face, like I thought I was gonna throw up. I'm like hyperventilating, like it all came like to my mind, like, oh my gosh, I don't even share this part of my story and what I had done. I didn't know, you know what I mean? I felt so ignorant. And God brought that thing up not to shame me and condemn me, but he wanted to break my heart for this. And I was weeping, but God is so kind because he knew that was the exact timing he needed to wreck me for this, because I was with Lauren, who shared her story with me, and then Bev, who shared her story with me, and she had had 2 abortions and like started this whole fruitful ministry out of that pain, right? And it was just incredible. So I had done Lives at Risk, and then I went on outreach. I was praying on where to go on outreach for our school, because you go on like basically a missions trip. And God was speaking the West Coast. I'm like, I just moved from the West Coast. Let me go to India. Like, why am I going to West Coast? So I go to the West Coast. I'm 4 months pregnant, and I was very sick the whole time, just sleeping on church floors, serving the Lord. And on the very last day of the outreach, I had a miscarriage, and I basically gave birth in the toilet. Like, it was super traumatic. I was so hurt and angry at God. So many prophetic words spoken over this pregnancy, and I'm like, God, help me understand. I am really struggling right now. And, you know, just got to a point of even like, just being really honest with you, I was taking Vicodin, which I hate. I'm like totally sober now, and I had to take it for the pain. But then after the pain was gone, like a couple days went by, and I took it again, and then I took it again, because I was numbing that pain, and that I didn't want to grieve. And I felt like God was like, you need to give those pills to your husband, and you don't need that. You need me, and I'm going to walk you through this pain, and you're going to grieve. We're going to do it together. And so, you know, just so much confusion around that. But because I miscarried, I ended up at this house. It was a maternity home called Father Heart. And the staff was there. It was Valentine's Day. I'll never forget. They were just making lunch for the girls and making them feel so seen and special. And I could relate to those girls. I was that girl, and I was just like blown away by what they were doing. And so I ended up... God asked us to move in with them, which was crazy. Oh, I renovated one of the bedrooms too. Like we got asked to assign, like they assigned us to renovate bedrooms for these moms, make it really sweet for their pregnancy. And so I was finding out what she liked and just making it really sweet. And then God spoke to us, well, first to me, that we were gonna move in here. and do a season with these girls. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like this is gonna be 24/7, and these girls are needy, and I was this girl, and I don't know if I can do this. Again, another, act of obedience that, only God could orchestrate that, but we said yes, we moved in. And in that same time, I had got asked to share my story on a panel of women who had had an abortion. And so I was leaving, and the videographer followed me out, and he was like, I feel like God's going to give you a baby, and it's a testimony you're going to take to the nations. And I'm like, I just miscarried. I'm like, am I pregnant? Like, am I going to be pregnant? And so then that was on a Thursday. I go to church on Sunday, and a woman who I never met said the exact same words to me. God's going to give you a baby, and it's a testimony that you're going to take to the nations. And I was like, what are you doing, Lord? And so, like, shortly after that, just a couple weeks after that, the mom whose bedroom I was renovating asked us to adopt her son. And we were due August 20th, and we got him on August 13th. And God was showing me, like, you think you know what's best? Like, that's why you don't question me. Even in the pain and heartache, you don't question if I'm good. He had a plan. He was like, your baby is with me. Your baby didn't experience any heartache or pain. Your baby, the first face that baby saw was me. And this little guy needs rescued because his mom's in prison right now. He would literally be in the system. So Dustin and I stepped up. We said yes. It was like no preparation. Overnight, 800 diapers. She gave us, like, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? And so we're living in the attic of a house, like just with a new little baby who, was very angry and didn't like to be held. And he already experienced a lot of trauma. So it was hard. But yeah, just another way we could just give God our yes and how he radically, oh man. Okay, so sorry, I don't want to miss anything. I have so much, but that's why I wrote a book, because I'm like, I can't say it all today. So then after we knew that our son's older brother was taken by CPS, and we were praying that the brothers could be together. That was like super important to us. We were praying a lot for that. I remember sitting out on the porch at Father Heart just thinking like, man, for them to be together. Because I would take her, the birth mom, on visits to see her son who was taken by CPS while she's pregnant with the one she asked us to adopt. So it was wild. And his living conditions were not great. And, he needed a mom and dad. And so I would take her on visits. And then, he had a lot of trauma too. He spent the first 3 weeks of his life on the floor of a crack house, like totally neglected. And CPS took him and gave him to the grandmother. But we were always believing they'd be together. And then my husband and I felt called to move to Virginia Beach. We're moving all the time. God's just like, okay, the minute we get comfortable somewhere, he's like, see ya. So we moved to Virginia Beach. And like 6 months into living there, my husband gets on America's Got Talent, which was wild because it was 3 years later. So when we were living 2 years before that in Texas, I was out on a run, and I felt like God said, Dustin's going to win America's Got Talent. And so I wrote it in my iPhone, like in my notes, so it could be like timestamped. I can't make this up. My whole body was covered in chills. And so he tried out for 3 seasons. And it was confusing, and it just shows God's timing is so perfect because the first 2 seasons, like, he didn't get on, but they were, like, so excited about our story, but the story kept evolving. And God's like, no, I have the perfect timing for you to tell this story. And that's the only reason he tried out was so we could tell our story. And so we went out for the first round of AGT. We were at Whole Foods, and we're still praying for the older brother to come be with us. And we're at Whole Foods, and this woman comes up to us and says, all 3 siblings are going to be together in Jesus' name. And they have a baby sister, so it's 432. We were praying for both of them, and she says this, and we're just floored. We get back to Virginia Beach. About a week later, we get a call from the grandma to adopt the older brother. I planted that seed a year before that. I actually reached out to the grandma and was like, hey, I didn't want her to feel threatened, but I'm like, if you need any help, we would help you in a heartbeat, like, just so you know we have your back. And it was just through that relationship. God's always spoken like, nobody cares how much I know till they know how much I care. You know what I mean? And just making her feel valued through that and safe and seen. Like, she was able to call us then and ask us to adopt him. The timing was insane. America's Got Talent was sending a crew out to film our life with our son Xander, the younger brother. And it just so happened they were coming the exact same day that the brother was coming with the uncle. So they were able to capture that first moment of the boys meeting each other and like seeing each other. It was so unreal, the timing. Yeah, and so then after, my husband ended up winning. Which is really cool. And he was able to tell their story. If you haven't seen it, you have to look up. It's so beautiful. He was able to tell the adoption story to the nations. God's going to give me a baby, and it's a testimony to take to the nations. Like, what? Only God could do that. It was just unbelievable. But yeah, the day he won, our lease was up in Virginia Beach. The exact day. Like, what? And it was on his parents' anniversary, which was like so cool. Just all these tie-ins, right, of like the power of the one and discipleship and like showing up for people and saying yes to hard things. And I think as women too, I want to say we are built for hard things. Women are really built for that. We carry that nurturing mama heart that can reach these girls and saying yes to God in hard things. You know what I mean? And I think that, yeah, anyways, I go on about that. But so basically, we ended up in Las Vegas. My husband said we were praying for this next opportunity, which was a residency in Vegas. We got the green light. We shipped our stuff to Vegas without a house. All of our stuff. We're believing God said yes, but we hadn't found a house yet. But we're like, it's going to take 2 weeks to get there, so we'll find something. We just tell the guy to head towards Vegas. Like, I don't have an address, but just go that direction. So yes, we've been in Vegas the last year and a half. We recently just moved to Hawaii with both of our boys. We are working with University of the Nations, which is Youth with a Mission. That's like their main campus there. And already I don't know, even just flying here, which was hard, by the way. I'm 6 hours behind, so I'm trying to fall asleep at 10 last night. I'm like, it's 4 o'clock. I can't sleep at 4. But so, no, we've been in Hawaii, and I was just, on my flight here, I was so overwhelmed. Like, I literally was so emotional at the fact that, like, I don't know, it's like stuff I knew, but it really hit my heart. Just what you guys have done here at Heartbeat, like just the foundation you've laid, and with maternity homes and pregnancy resource centers. I didn't even know these things existed, you know what I mean? And until Father Heart in Texas, like, and that's just fruit of what you all have done. And it's wild to see the impact of our obedience and our yes to hard things, to doing hard things, and the fruit that comes from it. And the prayer, oh my goodness, and the prayer, all the change that's already happened with Dobbs Case, like everything, the power of prayer and what it can do in our lives is just, it blows me away, because I personally know the power of prayer. When I got saved, guess who I reached out to? The volleyball coach. She said, I am undone. I spent 10 years on my knees praying for you and going to war for you. I knew that you had so much potential, you were just lost. And so I felt like when I was flying here, I'm like, man, so much fruit. Like, we wouldn't even have this platform that God's entrusted us with for who knows how long. Could be a short season, could be longer, I don't know. But my husband is like going to all these corporations now. He's doing his show for these corporations, sharing our kids' story and like the power of like prayer and adoption. And it's wild to think, yeah, just the fruit that's come from this, and how we wouldn't even be here. Like we wouldn't have this platform, or we wouldn't have our boys. I wouldn't have a family without this, you know? It's just like mind-blowing to circle back and think, wow, the power in our yes to God. So I really felt that coming here. Like, I really just wanted to encourage you all to just press in and keep praying and keep being a voice for these girls, right? The one, just one person. And I think I really hit me in Vegas, like the power in that. God just kept speaking. Nobody cares how much you know. I can give a lot of facts. I have a lot of testimonies. God's done wild things. You only heard like a tiny bit of this. But nobody cares until they know how much I love them. And that's what I want people to feel. And that was my biggest challenge in Vegas. And God was really testing me. He was like, I know, I love sharing my story. I love sharing by the way, I usually share at like colleges and churches. I didn't even know what business casual was. So I was at Salvation Army in Target yesterday. But anyways, I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. But I don't know why I just went. But can someone help me? I just lost it. My train of thought. What was I saying before that? Yes, thank you. So I felt so challenged in Vegas. There was a single mom living next door. She had a bunch of kids. She was living with another single mom who had a bunch of kids. They were helping each other raise their kids, which was actually pretty cool. They were like, you know what, it takes two. And we both went through really bad divorce, so we're helping each other. But they definitely, drank a lot, and the one was just like always screaming at her kids, and it was always so heartbreaking. But I wanted to do something, so I really kept an open door with her. I kept my door open even when it was inconvenient. I was like, you can come over anytime you want. She'd come over drunk, complaining, and I would just share, I would listen a lot, but then share little bits of my story that related to maybe something she was going through. It was so cool just keeping that open door with her, and just keep, wanting relationship and just finding ways to even bless her. I would pray, God, what do I do to love her? I'm so selfish sometimes. What do I do to just show her I care? And he would give me creative ideas. I don't know, she'd be drunk the night before, so I'd go take her trash out on trash day because she'd forget. Or just little things like that. And more she started opening up. Well, then she ended up coming to church, which was crazy. Then she ended up getting baptized at our church, and now she's homeschooling her kids, and she's apologizing to her kids when she messes up and falls short, and she is completely transformed. And it's that's what my husband and I are so passionate about. It's sure, we can have a stage. Even AGT is this is amazing, you have a platform, now you can change the world, now you can do something with impact. And my husband's I was already doing this before AGT. You don't have to have a platform to change someone's life. What are you talking about? It's the power of one. And really just, man. So I wanted to show a little video to end this, just because I want you to see with your eyes just the fruit of what you guys do, and to don't stop. Man, God is just on the brink of something huge. I really feel it in our nation and with family, and what that looks like. And what it means to be a woman. There's such an attack against a woman. He's doing so much, and it's so exciting. But I want to show this little video. It's of our boys from the first day they met until now. It's just a quick little fun video. But thank you guys so much. I love you all. Thank you for having me.
Hear my own voice when it's all that I hear is noise. Everything is way too loud.